You're now locked in to HBCU Pulse. We're the #1 outlet for HBCU life, talking about everything that's important to our culture, from on-campus issues to politics and what's trending on the yard. We always keep that same energy. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.
Yes, heavy on keeping that same energy. What's going on, everybody? This is Randall, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for a very special broadcast of HBCU Pulse Radio. So I want to play this. So we just finished our recording of the latest football coverage for us. And I know that on Saturday, I released a video that was entitled Jackson State's Deion Sanders halftime comments versus Grambling to ESPN. Did he diss HBCU football? And I saw the comments. I know that Jackson State and also Deion Sanders fans were eating me up in the comments. And a lot of people agreed, with the sentiment that he was not dissing HBCU football. My whole entire conjecture on it, and I'm going to play for you my response to some of the comments and you all's, and some of the erroneous comments, in this clip I'm about to play. But I want to preface this clip and the comments that you're going to hear from me and my co-host Arielle by saying this: we love Deion Sanders. Like, Arielle is a Atlanta Falcons fan, and Deion Sanders, before he was Coach Prime time, was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. Like, I am Atlanta Falcons adjacent. I'm a Lamar Jackson fan, so I root for the Ravens. But I love Deion Sanders. Like, Deion Sanders is very motivational. Like, the fact that he doesn't drink or smoke, and he never has and never will, like, that's something that's motivational for me, because I don't drink or smoke, and I think that his discipline, as well as, his motivation, like, that's always motivated me even before he came to Jackson State. So it's all love for Deion Sanders. And we love Jackson State. We've covered Jackson State on HBCU Pulse, on Instagram and on our website and on YouTube before. And the Sonic Boom of the South is arguably the best HBCU band in the land. Arguably. You know what I'm saying? It's an argument, but Sonic Boom is definitely there. But I just don't think it's wrong to criticize Deion Sanders for what we think is wrong. Because just because we think it's wrong, it doesn't mean it is wrong. But his comments about Grambling in the game during halftime, it did raise some antennas, and it wasn't just me. It was other folks that were on Twitter that raised their antennas. But also, as well, what he said about the bands and about the attendance at the games, I just think it was a bit erroneous. And we talked about that in this clip. It was a bit erroneous because it's hot, and the FAMU band, the March 100, they left because of heat exhaustion. I got that from several sources, and it was reported in the news. And then also, we have a report in the news that it was a heat exhaustion situation that also went on when Grambling's band left. And this reported by WAPT. And you can read it. The article is called "Record Number Treated for Heat-Related Problems During the JSU Game." And that's a local affiliate in Mississippi. Like, they covered the fact it was hot. So a lot of folks, were hot. They were passing out. And then the Grambling band, like, the world famed Tiger Band, like, they left because it was hot. And they have on full band regalia. So I just think that the band leaving isn't indicative of the culture of HBCUs. Do we need to fix our crowd and fan culture? We do. Every school is in Jackson State. But I think that painting out HBCUs to be charity cases, I just think it doesn't serve us well when, yes, we have our problems, but at the same time, we do a lot of great things and everything ain't a problem, So that's my conjecture on it. I want you, if you're listening to this right now, to hear me out. All right? Hear me out. Listen to what we have to say. Don't get caught up in the prognostication, and really hear us out. And let's talk respectfully, because I'm not even going to lie. I got called a beta male in the comments, and I didn't really like that, okay? Not gonna lie to you. I didn't really like that. That I wasn't a big fan of being called a beta male, okay? And I wasn't a big fan of being called the weakest link, and I'm pretty sure somebody called me a coon. I'm further from a coon, all right? And those comments were deleted. But if you did respond and you disagree with me, it's all love, and I appreciate you for being respectful. And I understand where you're coming from, and I did hear you. But these are our comments from the latest edition of HBCU Pulse Radio, the HBCU Sports Edition, where I responded to the comments and how people felt about Deion Sanders' halftime comments, as well as Arielle's comments as she tackled it as well. So please be respectful and please hear us out because I think you'll understand where we're coming from.
You're listening to the HBCU Sports Playbook on HBCU Pulse Radio.
Honestly, Arielle, and I'm going to say it with my chest, I think that Jackson State's getting a little bit too cocky. I honestly believe that. And let me preface it by saying this. I will read the quote because I'm not going to play the audio because ESPN taught me my lesson in the video I made on Saturday where they took down, you know, saying the audio clip and we couldn't play the audio because it was copyrighted. It was only 15 seconds. ESPN, y'all need to do better. All right, trying to promote HBCU football. Can y'all work with me, golly? Anyway, but I want to say this: if we criticize Jackson State and Deion Sanders, it is not us saying we hate Jackson State. It's not us saying we hate Deion Sanders. We love what Coach Sanders is doing. We love it. We're rooting for Shador. We're rooting for Travis and hope Travis gets better because we know he's injured. You know, we're rooting for these players like Kevin Coleman and these other amazing seniors that are on their team to get drafted because in general, we love HBCU football. So don't get caught up in the prognostication. You know, we have Stephen A. Smith that went to Winston-Salem State University. He'll come out and say someone sucks. We're not going to say that. You know what I'm saying? Don't get caught up in the prognostication. But at the same time, we have to hold, you know, at least in sports terms, hold folks accountable. And we got to speak our opinion. So you can't bully us off our opinion. You can't push us off our opinion, especially if what we're saying is rooted in some level of fact. So I want to pivot to the halftime comments that Jackson State head coach, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, said to Jay Walker. So as we know during the ESPN broadcast, we know that Deion Sanders typically in a normal ESPN broadcast, he'll come up and they'll do a halftime interview with Jay Walker and Tiffany Green, who call the games, of course. And, you know, of course, you have Tiffany Green that is doing the play-by-play. Jay Walker is doing the color commentating. They're a great duo. So they interview Coach Prime. And Jay Walker asked him what his message to his team would be as they let 17 points happen. And Grambling was starting to get momentum and make a comeback. This is what he said. Deion Sanders said, I have no idea right now. That's how upset I am. This is not indicative of who we are. We talk about dominating. We're not dominating. We just want to be good. We don't want to be great. We don't want to just dominate and go pro. We're cool with playing at an HBCU. We're cool with that. I just want these guys to think outside the darn box. I said darn. We're just playing down to the level that we're playing up against. Mind you, Grambling scored 17 points leading in halftime after Jackson State held FAMU and Tennessee State collectively to 6 points. How are you playing down to someone's level? I mean, I know that Grambling didn't play a perfect game and you came out and scored an opening drive touchdown, but what's the level if you only have them down by 4 points? That was what's confusing to me. Do I think that Deion Sanders hates HBCUs and he's using Jackson State as his evil maniacal plan to get to Georgia Tech or Clemson? No, I don't think that. Do I think he's not going to be here for the long haul? I don't know for a fact because someone in the YouTube comments, Arielle, they said Deion Sanders got money. I mean, he don't need the money. And that's true. He is very fiscally responsible. He's still a very relevant athlete. We talk oftentimes about how Michael Jordan is still relevant. Magic Johnson is almost a billionaire. Michael Jordan is a billionaire. If we're talking about another athlete that is still relevant, of course, Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, of course, ESPN and what they're doing in their outside ventures outside of football. But Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, has been relevant since he's retired. So he does got the bag. He has money. But the thing about it is that as a coach, he's a winner. He wants to achieve more. So do I see him being Eddie Robinson for this generation? I don't. If he does, I'll be gladly wrong. So he probably is going to leave soon. But at the same time, I do think he loves HBCU football and he wants to help. And his comments connote that. But his comments, before, he does these other press conferences, these other comments, I think that says to me that he does support HBCUs. But in summation, I want to toss to you, Arielle. I just think that this comment here for me, and I've sat on it. I've seen, the responses to my video. I was called a beta male. I was called you weak. Oh, you not a real football fan. So I've been insulted. like I've never been called a beta male or a beta male. Wow. But the big thing is that, dude, I know what we're here for, because at the end of the day, it's bigger than football. We are here to see these young men grow, and we want to see these young men change the tide of their lives and get to play professionally. But the big thing is that it does seem like they think they're too big for HBCU football to a point. Because how were you playing down to Grambling when Grambling, in that case, was playing up to you?
I see both sides. And I think this comment came at a time where Deion Sanders and his team at Jackson State are finally challenged. That was the main topic from our last segment. They finally met a challenge, and it's only going to get worse throughout the progression of their season. So you see a team that hasn't came close enough of 4 points to even beating you to the half. Like, the game wasn't even over, but they're coming on the click of your heels and they're about to beat you. So putting that in Deion Sanders' mind, he's like, well, this isn't how we played. We're used to dominating, like he said, teams. We're used to being up by 20 points or more. We're used to having a great offense and a great defense that doesn't allow scores. They don't allow points. They don't allow touchdowns. We allow field goals some of the time, but we're not going to let you get even close to the red zone. We're not even going to let you get even close to where we are. So when you think about that and you think about his perspective and where he's at in his mind, this isn't what he's used to. So it's in him, and you've seen this with Deion Sanders, how he'll support like HBCUs and their team and bringing them up, but at the same time, nobody can be better than him. I can't talk great about another HBCU unless it's bringing names onto their jerseys or bringing in new facilities or trying to get other coaches. But if anybody tries to be on a pedestal with me, that's when it becomes a problem. So he couldn't give Grambling their credit of how they've been doing great, how they're getting better players, how they're getting better acquainted with the game, how they're trying to come up and live up to Jackson State. He had to say that, hey, we're playing down to their level. Grambling has never been a bad team before Deion Sanders got there. Grambling used to be one of the top dominating teams that we see in HBCU football. Jackson State literally just got better from the 2 years, almost 2 years, growing on 2 years that you've been there. They used to be, honestly, they used to be like a Hampton before Hampton made this official switch. They used to be a really bad team couldn't.
Well, what I wouldn't say really bad. I would say middle of the pack, because like Jackson State, to a point, like they in 2013, they were contending, and then they had years where they were middle of the pack, in the typical SWAC and MEAC before, of course, FAMU and Bethune, jumped over. But they weren't Celebration Bowl contenders when the Celebration Bowl was established in 2015. They were nowhere near that. We weren't talking about Jackson State making the playoffs. They were more so middle of the pack, and they had really bad years, but they had good players, So I totally agree with what you're saying.
If you're not, you can contend, but if you're not actually making a difference or a change or actually bringing a challenge, you're a bad team to me. It's okay if you can barely win your games. It's okay if you are winning your games by the few poor margins that you have. But collectively, Jackson State hasn't really been a team, hasn't been recruiting really nice players, hasn't been a team that I'm scared of until 2 years ago, until Deion Sanders comes on the team. So you have to acknowledge that history. You have to acknowledge that just because Grambling came within 4 points of you, they're not where you are. You made that team. This is your team. Grambling never had to make themselves the way that you made Jackson State. So for you to say that about them and think that they're trying to live up to you, they're trying to attack you, I think you kind of got it misconstrued. Grambling didn't have to have that buildup or that exciting jump. Like Jackson State, their president, saw a problem. Grambling just got fortunate of having Hugh Jackson come, because they weren't a team that had to be built up from the ground. They were a team that was used to going to the playoffs each year, that was used to dominating, that has a championship. So I'm just confused as to why he would say that. I believe Deion Sanders, when it does, like we said, we're not trying to talk bad about him. He's done amazing work. I'm proud of what he's done. I'm proud that he's getting more players out there and noticeable, and he's getting these deals and all this spotlight. But you can never down an HBCU just because they're putting up a challenge against you. Grambling came to win. They're not Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they did, but they're not going to be these other two teams that you play with where you just run away before the half. They learned their lesson from watching these other two teams. They know what they have to do. They know they have to put pressure on Shedeur. They know that you don't have Travis Hunter right now, so maybe they can win up a little bit on their defense. But for you to be like they're playing down to their level, what makes Grambling so low? I'm confused.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Arielle, like 100%. And I just want to just say this is like, you know, at the end of the day, when we look at it, like, and I understand some of the comments because, you know, I made a YouTube video. If I didn't, you know, provide context for the HBCU League Pass audience and our podcast audience, when I heard the comments, I made a YouTube video where I really straddled the fence. Like I said, hey, this is how I felt about it. I didn't really like these comments, but I do understand that it was emotion, number one. And then also I know that he doesn't want to speak ill of HBCU football and say, oh, it's just terrible. This is Drew League. You know what I'm saying? This is high school, middle school football. Like, he's not saying that. But at the same time, like, I just wonder, and allow me to wonder, Jackson State fans and Deion Sanders fans, what I wonder is that is the message of dominating counteracting the notion that HBCU football is competitive? Because this is the narrative that a lot of Florida State fans, you know, when Travis Hunter jumped, a lot of Florida State fans were saying this. What they were saying was that, well, why would Travis Hunter go to Jackson State? It's FCS, it's the SWAC. He's just going to dominate and be better than everybody. He's not going against the best competition. So in that case, I feel like the codified message of dominance, as opposed to saying that, hey, this team had our number a little bit, but we're going to be better. Doesn't that notion of dominating go against the notion that this field is just as competitive as the FBS? Like that's my thing. And this is just me musing. And Arielle, this isn't a rhetorical question. I want to, if you want to answer this, I want to get your answer because you've watched way more college football than me. You know, I've gotten more into football in recent years. I'm a basketball guy. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But I don't know if Nick Saban would have said this. If Nick Saban was playing like, I don't know, LSU or someone in the SEC that has a blue blood program, they've done well, and they have a new coach. Like I think LSU is a great example. Like, they're a blue blood program. They've won championships before. They've had their lows, but now they have a new coach and they're going out there trying to win. And then Nick Saban in Alabama just destroys them. You know what I'm saying? Like, is he going to say, man, listen, we dominated. We're playing down to their level. Let's say LSU has them 21-17 at halftime. We're playing down to LSU's level. I just don't know if he would say that. And I don't know if, you know, your FBS coaches or even FCS coaches in other conferences would say that. Because, of course, the notion is that Georgia, like you said, is dominating. Of course, Alabama State is dominating. But are we fully just saying the competition is trash? Because that's sort of what I got from it. I just don't think that would happen, Arielle. But I understand that people are saying that it's not that deep. And I know for me, I don't want to be contradictory because with Fort Valley, my comments might sound a little bit hypocritical when I talk about my HBCU because I felt like we should have nominated Allen. But at the same time, you're going to hear me show love to Allen because the quarterback did amazing. Like, they made it a very competitive game as they're trying to reestablish their football program. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I understand we're speaking when we're upset, and there's a lot of emotion that's going into that. But I still, as I sat back, and I had a Sunday where I sat back and thought about my comments on YouTube, as well as just the overall Deion Sanders comments, I don't think I'm totally wrong, to be honest with you.
Thinking about it, and I didn't see the question posed that way, first thinking about it. And now that seeing you think about all these college coaches, I don't think I've ever seen a college coach, even a winning college coach like Nick Saban, say that we're playing down to somebody's level. And I think coaches like him, coaches like Jimbo Fisher, who used to be with Florida State, coaches at Notre Dame that are used to winning, usually they say, hey, we're not doing our best. This team is bringing out a really good defense. They're knocking around our guys. We don't know how to handle this right now, but when we get into the locker room, we're going to handle it. It's more of that, so to speak. And, when you're in the moment, you don't really know what you're kind of saying. And I think he's looked back at that comment And I think he tried to make up for it in his press conference after the game, you know, trying to speak lightly and highly about HBCUs, trying to kind of work around the bush in that situation of what I said during halftime. Because it's halftime. And like I said, you're in shock because you've never been in this position before. So I think it could have been worded differently. What he said, it could have been more like, wow, Grambling is really bringing the heat. And I know my guys are not used to this, but I know when we come back out, we're going to play at the tempo that we're used to playing, and we're going to show why we're Jackson State. I could have took that. I could have took anything besides what he said. And I think people have to get out of the mindset of, yes, this man has done so much that we can't, you know, necessarily critique what he's saying. Because what he said wasn't okay, but you can't negate that and be like, well, he's done so much for the community and he's bringing so much to us that we're not going to press or even think about all the things that were kind of negative against other HBCUs. Like, was it the best thing? Was it the best comment? No, but we're not finna sit here and like, if you want to play on that professional level, if you really want to build up and you're really for HBCUs, there has to be a way that you say certain things so that way it doesn't feel like you're completely going back and forth or you're kind of contradicting yourself when we hear you. And I don't think this is the first time, but I think this is a comment that really deserves to have light shined on it, because it's kind of disturbing from the point of where he's trying to stand with us and trying to make us a better place more when it comes to attending HBCUs, and there's really talent there and that we want to showcase these players.
Exactly. And I want to say this too, a couple more comments before we move on. Number one, HBCUs aren't a soup kitchen, first and foremost. HBCUs, like you said, Arielle, have had great players. Devontae Kincaid is an example that played well and did amazing in SWAC and MEAC football before Deion Sanders arrived at Jackson State. That is just the truth. So yes, there are issues that HBCUs have to combat. But at the same time, what I saw from the young lady, we talked about it on HBCU Pulse YouTube, the young lady that started the Majorette dance team, which shout out to her. But the comments that came from PWI students and alum about, HBCUs have mold in their dorms and they can't house all these students. How can all black students go to HBCUs and they can't house all these students? Some of these issues that people are saying HBCUs deal with are incredibly pronounced. Some of y'all are just saying everything. You would think you just walk into just a mold-infested building, and every building you walk into. I've been in North Carolina A&T's campus. It felt like I was in the Jetsons. Like I felt like I stepped into the future. I looked around, and I'm like, where am I? Like I felt I was in Narnia somewhere, man. Like what the world? In Fort Valley, don't talk about our campus. We go crazy. The state schools, Albany, Fort Valley, and Savannah State, I'm a rep for our state schools. We don't play. Okay, so it's like, come on. Some of the stuff people are saying are pronounced, and I want to say this one last thing before we move on. And this is me, according to some, I guess, Deion Sanders, Jackson State fans, the beta male, the weakest link, the not really a football fan. This is me saying this, and yeah, that sort of got to me. I'm not gonna lie to you, that sort of got to me because I'm like, dang, I'm just giving my opinion. But listen, I appreciate Deion Sanders bringing light to certain issues, but FAMU's band, it was hot out there. There was nothing wrong with the band leaving and coming back for fifth quarter. It was hot. Same thing with Grambling's band. It was hot. And there's a report and there's multiple reports from local affiliates in Jackson that there were several fans that were at the home game for Jackson State that had to be treated for heat exhaustion. So it's not, the band is leaving. No, like everything ain't a problem. Like you said, Arielle, everything's not a problem. I just think sometimes can we talk about the positive things? And maybe that's not Deion Sanders' job. Maybe Deion Sanders' job is to promote the positivity of what Jackson State is doing. But at the same time, gosh, y'all, everything ain't all bad at HBCUs. Did you see the list of the top HBCUs from U.S. News and World Reports, it's several HBCUs that are doing well there. FAMU, I know they're having their issues, but they're the number one public HBCU. North Carolina A&T is on that list. You have Tuskegee and D2, they're on that list. You have the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. You have Xavier University of Louisiana that's on that list. Hampton's on that list. So HBCUs are not the pity project that a lot of PWI graduates, a lot of PWI students, and a lot of these folks that are not used to HBCU football but came to the train because Coach Prime came to Jackson State, it's not that. And we have to make that clear. Researching, we're leading. We were putting folks in the NFL when Deion Sanders was still in the NFL. As a matter of fact, if you want to be real, on the Dallas Cowboys, he had some HBCU alum that were on the Dallas Cowboys. He played with Jerry Rice, and he contended against Jerry Rice, Mississippi Valley. So come on, y'all. Come on. It ain't that dire with HBCUs. Do we need to get better? Yes. But are we the slums? No. Come on. Let's be real. All right. But anyway.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to HBCUPulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.